So since I started this whole series, it really came clear to me that I've been doing people that are just kind of plain. They don't really have anything to them. There's nothing great and big and extraordinary that they do in their films. But I feel like it was time to change that. And we are taking on Wes Anderson. So welcome to the A-List. Welcome back to another episode of the A-List. Yes, I said it. We are taking on Wes Anderson. This is a massive director. This is actually the first director I have done or actor or anything that has such a unique style that they are known for it and pretty much nothing else, and how their dialogue is. They control the movie more so than the actors, you would say, for this director. So I felt like this is a great one, and during this time of quarantine, to get really deep inside of Wes Anderson's filmography. And I will preface this. Before I even got into this deep dive, I thought he was just okay, and the only ones I saw were Fantastic Mr. Fox and Isle of Dogs. But since that has changed, and one of these movies that we'll get into has become one of my favorites of all time. So before, like in every episode, we get into the whole movie thing, let's learn about a little bit about his life.
Filmmaker Wesley "Wes" Wales Anderson was born on May 1st, 1969, in Houston, Texas. His father, Melver Anderson, ran an advertising and public relations company, and his mother, Texas Ann Burroughs, worked in both real estate and archaeology. Anderson grew up with his two brothers, Eric and Mel, but their parents divorced when Anderson was 8. While trying to cope with the disintegration of his parents' marriage, Anderson often misbehaved at school. In time, he turned his energies from mischief-making to artistic endeavors. The young Anderson directed movies starring himself and his brothers, filming them with a Super 8mm camera. He read avidly, developing a passion for novels and finding himself consumed by storytelling. Anderson attended St. John's School in Houston, where he became known for his large and complex play productions. Often these productions were based on well-known stories, films, and even TV shows. One work was a sock puppet version of the 1978 Kenny Rogers album, The Gambler. After graduating from St. John's in the late 1980s, Wes Anderson enrolled at the University of Texas at Austin. There he met Owen Wilson, who has been a writing partner or cast member in almost every film Anderson has ever made since. Anderson was a philosophy major and Wilson was studying English, and they had common interests. Anderson said to the AMC blog in 1996 that the two first encountered each other while doing a playwriting class together. This thing where everybody, about 9 of us, sat around a table and discussed plays. And I always sat in one corner, not really at the table, and Owen always sat in the other corner, not really at his table, and we never spoke the whole semester. After the class, Anderson recalls running into Wilson, and the two started talking about writers, but also talked about movies right off the bat. He said to Interview magazine in 2009, "I know he wanted to do something with movies. I don't know if he had realized yet that it was an option." The two eventually became roommates and worked on a script for a full-length movie they called Bottle Rocket. Anderson earned his BA in philosophy in 1991.
So when looking at Wes Anderson's filmography, it's kind of a big transition for him if you really look into his life. So right after college, they did a short film, and that was Owen Wilson, Wes Anderson, and Luke Wilson. And during the set, they're like, okay, it's good. We at least got to do one movie together. It was fun. But in 1996, they got their first big movie, and that is Bottle Rocket, a film adaptation. So a lot of people don't really know what Bottle Rocket is. And the thing about Wes Anderson is he's such a distinct filmmaker that everyone loves pretty much all his movies, and they usually get nominated for Oscars, is because he does this extraordinary stuff in this weird style, but making it also a really good movie. So therefore, they always get a Criterion version of their movies, and Bottle Rocket was his first film that actually got a Criterion. And this is amazing on how everything comes together for Wes Anderson. So first off, when you really look at a Criterion, though, is each one of these designs on a Criterion is actually made by his brother, Wes Anderson's brother. And he makes all these, and that's what gets put on the Criterion. So Bottle Rocket is about these 3 guys that want to plan a robbery and how that kind of unfundles through the whole movie. So a big part about this movie that does not get talked about or anything is very un-Wes Anderson-like. He doesn't really have his main things in it, and a lot of people criticize every single Wes Anderson movie to be the same and control the same things. I even saw a video about how his films are racist in some sort of way, which I found to just be stupid in general. But with this movie, kind of started that trend, if you really want to call it, of this white main lead having a problem. And that's what I find interesting about his movies. When you really look at any movie or the past people we have done, they usually have a problem, they have to fix it. But this person and every single one of these people have a mental problem. And you don't really get that cured at the end of these movies at all. You just kind of see a segment of their life being cured. And, there's always going to be something else in life and how that changes. But there's always that big thing. And that's what this Bottle Rocket movie is about. We have Luke Wilson's character, which is amazing to have your friends on there. And also to have that person that is your friend, Owen Wilson, writing the script is also massive because you know who you're working with. You know who are your friends. So it works perfectly. But besides that, how is this movie? Personally, I think this movie is decent. It's not one of my favorite Wes Anderson movies, but yes, it doesn't really have those shots that are set up like in Grand Budapest or later films. It does not have that. It's more of a normal film, but the dialogue is so Wes Anderson and music is so Wes Anderson that makes it very special. And that's why I really, really did enjoy this movie, is because you don't have to worry about any of that stuff in this movie. You can purely just watch this movie and be like, okay, this dialogue's weird, but I like it. And it feels Wes Anderson. And that's what's great about this movie in general. But you definitely see the tendencies of what he'll eventually do with his movies and go with those little shots and everything. You kind of see that and how they do dialogue and narration. It is beautiful done in this movie. But again, he was getting in his stride, and some of the colors, like the jumpsuits they have in this movie, that was purely because he loves outfits, and I've learned that in Criterion. That's one of his favorite things is costumes and all that. So that's why you really see these big costumes and them winning Oscars when they're nominated for it, because there's a lot of effort, including from the director, and how he wants them to look. So moving on to his second movie that came out in 1998, and that is my favorite, Rushmore. Again, this is a Criterion that was artwork done by his brother, and I'll tell you what, this is one of my favorite movies of all time now. I have watched it so many damn times and watched the commentary, watched reviews multiple times every time I watch it because I'm so fascinated with this movie. So again, when going down his filmography for this video, I was always expecting that weird kind of shots that were not normal and like his style, but you don't really get that till later on. And literally the cutting block is Rushmore, where you start seeing that happen. So this is a big movie for Wes Anderson in general. But what's really interesting about this movie as a whole is the story was written by an Owen Wilson, but it's basically the two high school lives of Owen Wilson and Wes Anderson, where you got Max Fichter played by Jason Schwartzman, which is just incredible in this movie. But you have that side of artistic stuff, which is also Wes Anderson, but the side of getting kicked out to go to a public school, that is Owen Wilson's side. So you have this major mesh of their lives and personal stuff that is in this movie that is just amazing. You also have the character of Bill Murray in this movie, and they said they writ that part for Bill Murray, but they weren't really expecting to get him, but they did, which was just amazing. And how they went through the process to get Bill Murray on that part was just also extraordinary, because they were trying to get in contact with him and everything, but they figured it out eventually. Again, this is also a big start of the Wes Anderson thing, like I said, with colors and costumes, as we see Max Fichter with that beret, and you see him all in these different outfits that he does for different things. It's so unique to Wes Anderson. But also, one of my favorite parts of this movie is the soundtrack, and the soundtrack is just incredible and so unique to the movie in general. And it was such a hit soundtrack that I can't stop listening to it. And usually I'm not really the type of person that likes those songs, but this movie made me love them, and you know a movie's powerful for that reason. But also you get that Wes Anderson stuff, because each act has a curtain with a different color with different meanings, which was very important learning on the commentary from the Criterion about how he was making those choices. But again, there is no story that I have watched through Wes Anderson's filmography that hit me this hard in this movie. I can't stop watching it. I really can't. And I think it's mainly because of the characters and how they were written, how personal they feel, and how Bill Murray plays this role. I was not a big Bill Murray fan, to be honest. There was nothing like, oh yeah, that guy's amazing. This movie made that clear. And I can't stop watching Bill Murray movies now. It's crazy how this one movie could change that for me. but also just everything that is written in this movie is beautiful. Each scene has so much meaning that I love into it. Everything and every choice they do is so unique, and there's something there in every scene. Even though in the Criterion commentary for this movie you don't really get that, but also you do learn a little bit of tidbits, and that was just amazing to hear. And I cannot get enough of this movie. I can watch it forever and ever. I love this movie. If you guys are sketchy on Wes Anderson, please check out Rushmore. I swear, this is what will get you hooked. I love this movie. It is one of my favorites of all time now, and I can say that. This movie is extraordinary on 10 levels. Acting superb, and written is so amazing. The soundtrack is amazing. Just everything kills it in this movie, and I don't see that often. But this movie is one of the best of all time. So just a couple years later, one of his biggest hits and what people call to say one of their favorites, or is their favorite, Wes Anderson movie, and that is, of course, 2001's Royal Tenenbaums, again, the art done by his brother. This is the one that gets known by Wes Anderson more than anything. It is the one that people call to be their favorites because of how the comedy is introduced. And of course, that is really Wes Anderson. That subtlety is amazing in this movie. But you also have this main big cast: Gwyneth Paltrow, Gene Hackman, Ben Stiller, Luke Wilson, Owen Wilson. You have everyone in this movie that you'll see later on in movies, which is big. And this movie is really good. But would I say it's one of Wes Anderson's best? Not really. You're probably wondering why I'm saying that. Because this one gets called on a lot for Wes Anderson and what he does. Yes, it has the colors. Yes, it has the narration. Yes, it has the dialogue. Yes, it has the soundtrack. It has everything in a Wes Anderson movie. But is this one really, really that rewatchable for a lot of people? Because watching it 2 times, because I did a rewatch just for myself, and then I did another one for this show, and I felt like I didn't love it that much, or could reintroduce myself to it all the time. It was super interesting to rewatch this movie. I didn't get a chance to listen to the commentary for this one. But again, this one has so many unique styles that we continue to see. This is really the beginning of Wes Anderson's style that as we see it today in Royal Tenenbaums. So in 2001, he was getting his stride. We also get all this dialogue, but also you kind of see him working with more different actors like it was starting in Rushmore, even though we still get a little bit about them. But again, this story is not super rewatchable for me. And I feel like Wes Anderson movies take on this heavy issue of like abandoning your kids and being a bad father, which is what this movie's about. It's not really super rewatchable like a Rushmore, where you can just watch it and you can have some fun with it. This one's not super Wes Anderson, where it's that smiley kind of have fun watch but a dramatic topic. It's not one of those. And there's many that you can choose from his filmography that are like that. And I don't really feel like this is a rewatchable Wes Anderson movie. But don't get me wrong, this is a great movie, fantastic movie, great cast that is perfect in the Wes Anderson world. Also, the shots are set up beautifully, and how certain things come to be in this movie is just amazing as well. Again, the soundtrack's amazing. I love the little montages they have with the kids. It's so good. It's a really good movie. But again, that rewatchability is not there for me. So I wouldn't really say Royal Tenenbaums is one of Wes Anderson's best. So again, a couple years later, we get another story about a father issue, which a lot of people say that is a massive, massive thing that he keeps on repeating himself, and he doesn't stray from that whatsoever. And again, usually I don't really feel like they need to stray. I honestly feel like it works for him. He's doing it in different ways and portraying it in different ways where it feels new and unique. And he also says in many commentaries that I did listen to, saying that he never wants to repeat himself. He always wants to do something else. He always says that I don't want to do something that people keep on saying I'm doing the same thing. He always wants to do something unique and new, so that's what he's doing. And you could be like, he's not doing that story-wise, but he is still doing different types of movies, which is super, super unique, and it shows he has a lot of passion into this. But Life Aquatic is one of those movies where you really see him bring his A game here. So again, what I mean by that is the soundtrack alone. Okay, we have this guy that is part of the cruise ship of the Life Aquatic, and he sings on a guitar every now and then. He's doing the soundtrack for the documentary that's in the movie, and he's covering a bunch of these songs. That is taking him to a new level. It's not using just songs. He's literally hired a guy and this one guy to sing all these covers of these songs. That is unique and new for Wes Anderson. We also see him with the costumes, which I said that he loves making them, and he's really passionate about doing that. You can even So in most videos that he's talking about or seeing him, even for this movie's commentary, you actually see him going to the places to make sure that the costumes are right and actually being there in the room because he really cares about that. But again, these suits and these red caps are iconic for this movie, and it's so unique to him, and it's so him that I believe that that's one of the best parts of this movie is it feels so Wes Anderson that it works so well. Even a certain scene where Bill Murray's just dancing around, he's like, even these have like a radio in it, and he starts bobbing his head. That's so Wes Anderson, and I love it for that, and it's just beautiful. This is also one you can definitely rewatch a lot. There's a lot here. There's a lot of little scenes that you can laugh at. It's so good, and you also get to see a precursor to what he does in the future with the kind of stop motion with the tiger shark, and you also see that with the seahorse in the beginning. You get a lot of that, and I love it. I love how they show the boat going to room. It's amazing, and I want more of that in the future, and we do get a little bit more of that. It is just beautiful, and he's on his A game all the time. And yeah, you could be like, the story's not there, I'm not really into it, but I feel like it is one of the best Wes Anderson movies because it feels so Wes Anderson, and also the story is like a story, but it's in a better turn, and you really see this guy that is really messed up. There's even action in this movie that's so weird. They even have a one-legged dog. It's amazing what this movie does, and I feel like it's super underrated for Wes Anderson. So moving on, I gotta say that I'm not gonna do the shorts here. I'm gonna make a separate video later on, maybe in the future, of just his shorts, so I can do like a 10-minute video for you guys and taking these on, because movies are definitely separate from the short films, and I feel like I need to give them more of a shot and watch them multiple times so I can really dig into them and actually get my thoughts on them. But anyways, moving on to my least favorite Wes Anderson movie, and that is Darjeeling Limited, which came out in 2007. So when really talking about Wes Anderson, one of the things that will mostly come up is what is his worst movie? And that is, in many people's opinion, and in my opinion, the Darjeeling Limited. So again, this movie is super weird, but again, you get the cast of people that you've seen in most of these movies besides one guy, and that is, of course, you got Owen Wilson, Adrian Brody, and Jason Schwartzman returning in this movie. And yeah, this one's really weird. Again, you have three people dealing with father problems that also have other problems going on, and you get them on a train doing these weird things. And I feel like this is one of the Wes Anderson movies because you really have a lot of deep meaning in each one of the movies that we just talked about, and even moving forward. You have a lot of those deep meanings in these movies, but there's always that main meaning, and you can usually kind of uncover what the whole meaning of the movie is, plus those deep meanings. This one feels like it has a lot more going on than we know about. And this movie is really interesting to me because at the end, I kind of found myself enjoying it. But again, yes, it's Wes Anderson. It doesn't really feel super Wes Anderson-y. It also has these weird moments that you don't even know what's happening. You're kind of bored. And honestly, there's a lot here to this movie that I need to watch the commentary for to actually dive deep into this movie. And I found myself hesitant to do that. And I didn't really get to do that because I wasn't really looking forward to going through this movie and hearing his thoughts about it, because it feels like there's a lot going here. And if I watch that commentary and still don't know much about it, I'm going to be like, why am I doing this to myself? I didn't like the movie. You got a lot saying here, but what are you trying to say? And usually when a movie, you have to learn more about it outside to actually enjoy the movie, it's not really necessarily a great movie. Again, the soundtrack, forgettable. Every one of these other movies, I can kind of remember their soundtrack, but this one, I couldn't. The acting was good. I love Jason Schwartzman, and Owen Wilson was good. Adrian Brody was good, but again, there was a lot to their characters that we didn't really get to know super well, and how it resolved was kind of weird in general. But again, the ending kind of brought it all together with me liking it, but not loving it. And usually when a Wes Anderson movie is already complicated in its style and everything, you don't want that in the main story. And that's what this movie is. It's intriguing, but not super great in my opinion. So, we're getting into Wes Anderson in 2009 with Fantastic Mr. Fox. This is a new route that he was going on in 2007, kind of carrying on what happened in Life Aquatic with that stop motion and taking it for a full feature film. So again, this was my first Wes Anderson movie I ever saw, and it was awesome looking. I knew the book from Roald Dahl. It was so interesting. The acting in this movie, the cast acting in this movie with George Clooney and Bill Murray, that was intriguing for me as a little, because I know those people from movies I've seen. So I was like, that looks cool. Plus, it's Fantastic Fox. This seems funny and cool. And then you sit down, and when I was little watching it, and I was like, okay, I love the way this looks, but like, what the hell's going on? They're talking these big words. What are they saying here? What are they saying in here? And again, that's kind of where I left off. I remember loving this movie, but when rewatching it, honestly, found it to be one of Wes Anderson's weaker movies. Yes, it's intriguing, but also there's a lot going on when I was little, feeling like this was this big, grandiose. They would spend a lot of time in these factories that they were going to, but honestly, it only took like 2 minutes or less than that to go through each factory. And I was like, "What? Why am I watching this?" It doesn't feel like it was that big imaginary thing as a little, but actually going into the dialogue and everything, also found it to be boring. Even the small fox and his whole storyline, I thought that would be stupid. And every character I didn't really find myself rooting for besides Mr. Fox, and how everything kind of unraveled and all that. It wasn't really finding myself enjoying it. But yes, it's Wes Anderson to a T. And he really gets to do that because he's doing stop motion, so he can literally stop it and frame it however the hell he wants. Yes, it's a cool looking movie. It's a good soundtrack, but again, don't really super enjoy it. And honestly, I want to see George Clooney come back in another Wes Anderson movie. I'll find that would be awesome. But again, this movie didn't really hold up for me. And saying if I would watch it again, I don't know. But yeah, it is kind of on the weaker Wes Anderson movies because it just didn't find myself intrigued anymore, and I found it to be kind of boring. So, we have a movie here in 2012 where he got done with Fantastic Fox and went back to his roots, and this movie is super, super Wes Anderson. Soundtrack to a T Wes Anderson. Also, the acting is so good in this movie, even from the little kids, feels so Wes Anderson, which is just amazing. You also have amazing shots, and colors are on point for this movie, but again, this movie really relies on the people that are not really known in this movie. You got the two kids we have no idea about. We're following them through the story. We also have Edward Norton, Bill Murray. We have Bruce Willis in this movie. Yeah, those are people you know, but you're following these two kids. And yes, music is on point in this movie. The shots are beautiful. The colors are amazing. But what is this movie really doing for Wes Anderson? So watching it again and watching it for the first time, this really got me into like his live action stuff, this movie. And I didn't love it, but I liked it. And then watching it again, I still like it. It's really weird in how it goes into the cheating and all that and how everything ends up. Yeah, it's supposed to be happy ever after, but I didn't really find myself loving it so much as most people do. And yes, I think this movie's really good. I really feel like it's Wes Anderson's one of his best for his style and everything, for costume-wise, with soundtrack-wise. It's just beautifully made there. And also, shots with water are amazing too, which I really did enjoy. I love the characters in this movie, that they were very interesting. But the overall story, I didn't find myself super intriguing with. And listening to him talk about this movie, saying that he looks to believe the story of this movie is kind of based around the books of the children that are reading in this movie. And that's unique. And I found myself, I could probably watch this again with that in mind. That would really kind of get me there. But again, the story I didn't really love. I felt myself like, yeah, this movie's great. It was like, yeah, but I love it for Wes Anderson. I love what he's doing here, but the story is not really hitting there. And I will say that with most Wes Anderson movies, you know, a lot of people are saying that they're repeating the same thing. It doesn't bug me. But the overall story just doesn't really click in there that I'm loving it so much. Like a Rushmore or Life Aquatic. This movie really kind of goes by the books. They go on this journey. There's some interesting things. The main kid's acting I find to be okay. I didn't really love him that much. I like the girl better in this movie. I felt like she did a better job. And then the whole adults acting like children and the kids acting like adults was kind of, you saw that in many of these movies, watching Wes Anderson, kind of like in Rushmore. This is a common theme that you see. Even honest trailers from Screen Junkies made fun of it. And again, we have that very strong in a movie here, but honestly, I just didn't love it for a full movie, because Rushmore did it so much better because there was a lot going on in his life, and yes, I really did enjoy the main kid's like kind of story arc, but overall, didn't find myself loving this movie as most people do. Okay, so let's move on to his biggest film yet that has got so much praise, got nominated for an Oscar, and almost won it. And a lot of people were saying that this was going to take it. Costumes on point. Everything about this movie is amazing. Just came out on Criterion, and that is, of course, Grand Budapest Hotel. So again, I was going to start a series where I go through Best Picture winners that I haven't seen yet, but I decided, I was like, you know what, I'll start with Grand Budapest. I was going to do one on Wes Anderson anyway, so why not start with Grand Budapest? So I did, and I found myself loving the hell out of this movie, and so much that I bought it on iTunes after I rented it, and I was like, oh, they're coming out with the Criterion, I'll pre-order that, and I got it. And I already watched the commentary for this. This is just some of Wes Anderson's best work. Again, soundtrack is on point. The shots are amazing in this movie, but really what stands out to me are the colors in this movie. Like, to the pink boxes of the goods that are typing in, even to the prison and how that's all set up and how they do that, which is amazing. The shot of them escaping is just incredible. To the amazing acting of Ralph Fiennes is just something else. It is so good. And honestly, in the commentary, they said I couldn't picture anyone else in this besides Ralph Fiennes, and they kind of wrote the part for him with in mind. And honestly, it's just amazing. Even with storylines within storylines within storylines, is just beautiful. To the real Grand Budapest is just amazing. How each place and is set up and how it looks is just extraordinary. The acting in this movie is amazing. This story is so good and so good. I could watch it right now. I'm freaking remembering it. I love it so much. This movie is Wes Anderson at his best, and it's with everything that he cares about in movies, plus the story on point, not forgettable, amazing soundtrack. It has everything that's Wes Anderson great in this movie to his absolute potential. It is just something else, and that's the reason it gets talked about. Even the people that were in this movie, they kind of had this one type of style, and they were talking about this on the commentary, where he likes to have people in the set. If they go off in their trailer, they're outside of the scene, they're not really feeling the whole movie. If you were there watching it, then you get the vibe, you get what's going on, and then you get a better performance. So near the end of this movie, in the future, what he did is he has everyone there at the recording because he wants to have that feeling of it, which is just something I love to hear. And it makes it very apparent. And you also, the person that was really saying that this happened was Jeff Goldblum. And you kind of see that in his performance. And that was just amazing, where he really felt in the movie. Everyone was acting on point. This movie is extraordinary. It's so good. So good. If you guys haven't seen Grand Budapest, please give it a shot. It's really good. It's Wes Anderson at his best, for sure. Then we come to the end of his filmography, and that is, of course, his other adventure in stop motion. That is Isle of Dogs 2018. So, you have a lot of voice casting in this movie. You have Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Jeff Goldblum, Bill Murray. It is extraordinary in this movie, and I love this movie, and it's 1,000 times better than Fantastic Mr. Fox, because first of all, you have these cute dogs. Even though they're all messed up and beat up, you love the dogs so much. You're rooting for them, and it's just amazing, down to literally just sneezing the dogs across a zipline thing. It is extraordinary in this movie. The shots in this movie with them just staring at the screen is just amazing. The dialogue in this movie is so good, down to Bryan Cranston pronouncing everyone part of the pack, and when he goes down the line, he says "Chief." It's so good, and that is something that you probably felt like you didn't really need, but I'm glad he did, because I freaking loved it. The story is amazing too, with these dogs having this virus, and they get kicked off this island, and this kid is trying to go find his dog, and the whole journey of that is just amazing. Again, the soundtrack is so good. Every shot and how everything's set up is just amazing, down to the cubes of trash that you see is so good. It's amazing looking. And it's kind of crazy to see Wes Anderson with this such unique style, and having these little details that I love so much in this movie is so good. And this is also a very good story that I love so much in this movie. And this kid trying to find his dog is just beautiful. And yeah, you can say the movie kind of falls flat when it goes off the screen and dealing with the Girl with the Afro by Greta Gerwig is kind of boring and don't really like it. I can see that, but honestly, on this rewatch, I didn't mind it at all. I actually really did quite enjoy that. And then, of course, the dogs are amazing. The voice acting is so good. Bryan Cranston is 10 out of 10. Again, I want to see him in another Wes Anderson movie where he's live action. And man, dude, Wes Anderson's one of the best people out there, guys. He really is. He knocks it out of the park every time. And technically, I would say he knocks it out of the park every time. Even though, yeah, I trashed on Darjeeling Unlimited and also trashed on Phantoms of Mr. Fox, it doesn't mean I don't like him. I still like him. I like all his movies. Even to the point of not liking something, why I'm intrigued what he thinks of it, so I could probably enjoy it more, like Darjeeling Unlimited, or finding myself enjoying Phantoms of Mr. Fox and the little things in it. I feel like I can do that too, and I feel like if you don't like any of his movies, you can still find something little in it that you can love. Again, guys, this is a new director that I freaking love so much. Wes Anderson's one of my favorite directors working now. Will be now. That's why I have every criterion, because I want to learn more about him. It's amazing what this guy has done for the film industry, and what his style is so unique. I love it. Wes Anderson's the freaking best. Again, he has that new movie coming out later this year. Hopefully, this will be coming out in June, so you guys will kind of know if it is coming out or not, or it's getting pushed. We'll see what happens in this month. Again, I'm pre-recording this so I can do a bunch of these, so you guys can have a lot of these. I want to keep these consistent. But yes, Wes Anderson's the best. He's amazing. You guys can check out Guideline and subscribe to here. There's a bunch of new A-lists and a bunch of new videos coming out, so definitely check those out. There's also the Twitter. Check out the Twitter at Guideline_OFC. To get all the entertainment you need there. You can go to the website, www.guidelineentertainment.com, and yeah, you can do that. But guys, our next episode will be, of course, on one of my favorite directors, or if not my favorite director, we'll see. And that is, of course, Edgar Wright. Super excited about doing that. You know, 2 of his movies are some of my 2 favorites of all time. I love them so much. So we're going to go in and deep dive into all his movies. Even though it's short, I'm going to go into the TV show of his too. Even his first movie, that's very hard to find, but I found a copy, so I'm very excited about that. But guys, Wes Anderson's one of the best out there. I'll always see what he does now. I'm a big champion of him. Anything he does is just pretty much extraordinary and something new that I love. But again, Wes Anderson's style makes him
Met a girl, fell in love, glad as I can be. Met a girl, fell in love, glad as I can be.